Hey folks, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. We got a great show for you. We've got a ton of stuff to get to. This is the Millstone Report. As always, my name is Paul Harrell, and we can't do the program without you watching every single day. Donald Trump has finally broken his silence over what happened in Ukraine and Russia. Of course, Ukraine going on that incursion. Ukraine claiming that they destroyed 40-some planes of Russia's nuclear readiness. Now there are reports saying that it was only 13. But anyway, Donald Trump announcing moments ago on Truth Social that he has spoken once again with Vladimir Putin. The conversation reportedly lasted about an hour and 15 minutes. We're going to have that statement for you here in a minute. Doesn't look like peace is going to happen in Ukraine anytime soon. But for the moment, at least, it does appear that Donald Trump has gone directly to the source and has broken through whatever sort of blockade that I have suspected many of you. It's been a self-evident truth. There's been some sort of informational blockade where I think the president hasn't been getting some of this information about what's actually going on in Ukraine. Of course, Mike Pompeo, Lindsey Graham, they are acting as saboteurs in all of this, and we'll cover that as well. But I wanted to start the program today, first off, by telling you that this part of the program is brought to you by Red Vive Health. And if you want to know about the healing power of red light, you need to go to redvivehealth.org/Paul, where you get a discount. But just like yesterday, when we talked to Dr. Raul Desai, you can combine promo codes through the end of the week because of Father's Day. So if you combine the promo code Paul at checkout, which gets you 15%, with the promo code FATHERS15, and we'll tell you more about it here in a minute, you can get another 15%, a total of 30% off these red light panels. Many of you out there in the audience have been waiting for something like this. You've been waiting for a discount more than 15%. You like the technology. You know that these are not cheap devices, and I realize that, but they are also vital, in my opinion, for your health, and we're going to tell you more about that coming up a little later in the program. I want to start there, and also now we're going to start with what Elon Musk is doing. Musk is now against Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill. Now, there's a lot of different angles out there to take about this. I don't know. I mean, look, it feels like in some instances we are regurgitating talking points from 2010. The only reason I say that is because I was just starting out in radio back then. I was very, very much worried about the national debt because the national debt was $12 trillion. I knew everything about the national debt. The Tea Party people that were running in 2010, trying to fight against the Obama administration. You remember Rick Santelli that kicked off the Tea Party. It wasn't so much about taxation, although it was that, but it was stop the spending, stop the spending, stop the spending. We all remember him on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange in that viral CNBC interview where he said stop the spending, yelling stop the spending. But here we are, years later, 20 years later, and essentially nothing has changed except that number, that $12 trillion in debt that everybody thought was so bad. And again, it is bad to spend, just generally, morally speaking. It's bad to spend more than you take in. Okay, I'm not debating the morality of it. But to me, and this is my take on it, and it may be tired and bored, but I just think there's people, we don't have the full picture. I mean, if you can spend $12 trillion that you don't have, and now you can spend $36 trillion that you don't have, and at least for the financial elite, nothing really bad ever happens to them, what does the national debt even matter? What does the national debt even matter? That's my honest, now, I mean, it's just somebody I have lived this. To me, it just seems like the whole thing is fake and the whole thing is rigged, and that the national debt will only matter when somebody wants it to matter. And the people in Washington, the people at the Fed, they don't care and they don't want it to matter. Is debt slavery? Yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, eventually, yeah, of course. But to me, this is a crisis that has been constructed to be used for a lot of different ends. Never let a good crisis go to waste. It might be a way to reset and preserve the financial elites' power that they do have. All of this stuff. I mean, you think about it. Excuse me. You think about it. I don't know if you remember back in 2008, 2009. You had the bailout. Remember the TARP bailout? Remember $787 billion? Okay. So what is obvious to me is that if you go back and look at everything we know since the financial crisis of 2008, right? Bush is coming out of coming out of power. Obama's coming into power. What's obvious to me is nobody just writes it was like, what is it, 1,000-page bill to spend $787 billion, so $1 trillion. Nobody wrote that bill overnight. And the congressmen were all told, I don't know if you remember this, the congressmen were all brought in and they were all told, if we don't pass this bailout package, if we don't pass this, then there's going to be riots in the street because of the financial consequences. So they voted for it. Many of the guys that did that are still there now. Okay, but how do you? So my point is this bill, whatever it was, this package, it was written months or maybe even years ago before the crisis happened. So the whole thing, even then, I think, was a manufactured crisis, and people were very much aware of it. But that doesn't. Okay, so putting my personal feelings aside, and maybe we'll get to more of those here in a minute. That doesn't change the news. Musk is siding with people like Rand Paul. Musk is siding with people like Thomas Massey over the lack of Doge cuts, and I totally get that. I mean, originally we were all going to get $5,000 checks. Originally we were also going to get, I think, $1 trillion in cuts. Yeah, we even talked about that. I don't even have that paper here, but there was a valiant effort to balance the budget with $1 trillion in Doge cuts, $1 trillion increase in tariffs, and we were even talking at the beginning about abolishing the IRS and that sort of thing. You don't really hear that talk anymore. I haven't heard it out of Howard Lutnick in a while. So where were the cuts? Were the cuts found and ignored? Were there not? I heard Steve Bannon suggesting that Elon Musk promised $1 trillion in cuts and didn't find $1 trillion in cuts. I don't really know. All I know is right now Elon Musk is calling for basically the primarying of all politicians who have failed us. He says in November next year, we fire all politicians who betrayed the American people. Speaker Mike Johnson recently said that he tried to call Elon Musk last night, and Elon Musk did not answer the phone. We also have Elon Musk tweeting this: the immense level of overspending will drive America into debt slavery. And he was retweeting Geiger Capital's post that says, it was a 60-minute interview saying that 1 million seconds ago was May 23rd, 1 billion seconds ago was 1993, but 1 trillion seconds ago was 30,000 BC. The U.S. national debt is now rising by $1 trillion every 180 days. Now, I can appreciate Elon Musk wanting to bring this to our attention, but to me, it just shows you how absolutely insane it is that in 2009, 2010, we owed $12 trillion. So think about that. Just forget about it being 36 or 40, whatever it is. I don't even know what it actually is today. I just keep using the word, the number 36. I think it's more than 30, 37, 38. It is such a gargantuan amount of money, and honestly, I know mathematically speaking, there is a difference between $12 trillion and $37, $38 trillion. But if somebody said that you owed that amount of money, it really wouldn't matter. The sheer number is so gargantuan that you can't pay any of the numbers back. It's too much. So I can appreciate what Geiger Capital, what Musk is trying to do here, because it's something that I've been saying for a while. If you've been listening to the Millstone Report, anytime this topic about the national debt comes up, I try to conceptualize it to just people so people can understand how crazy it is. The numbers are absolutely insane, and they are so high that I've come to the conclusion that as long as you have the printing press, I mean, these people think we spend $12 trillion, nothing bad happens, so we might as well be able to spend 36 and nothing bad's going to happen, and I think they're right. I guess that's what I'm saying. I don't think they're right in spending more than we take in. They shouldn't be doing that. It's wrong. But there's clearly some information that we don't know. We have a financial system that is so tightly controlled. We don't have a free market. There's a very small amount of people that actually know the ins and outs of what makes all of this work, all of this fiat currency work. And the smaller group of people that actually understands a complex system, the more opportunity there is for corruption. That's just human nature. That's where we are right now. That's what I'm trying to say. So for years, I've conceptualized the national debt by saying, look, $1 trillion. This is the only way I can really conceptualize. I mean, I think it's good. Okay, $1 trillion. A trillion seconds ago was 30,000 BC. Okay. But $1 trillion, if you were to spend $1 trillion, just $1 trillion, it's $27 million a day for 100 years, with money still left over at the end of the 100 years, a little bit. $27 million a day for 100 years. Now, I want you to think about that. That's just $1 trillion for 100 years, $27 million, and we owe $40 trillion, let's say. So, you know, if you look at all the way to 2010, when we owed $12 trillion. I mean, what is the difference? Clearly, the whole thing is rigged, is what I'm trying to say. And the national debt, in my suspicion, it only is going to matter when somebody wants it to matter. So people are debating all this right now. We're seeing this apparent divorce or this splintering of MAGA over the big, beautiful bill. And look, I don't think that there's, look, I don't have any faith in Congress at all. I certainly don't have any faith in Congress to actually listen to the American people and do anything that weakens Washington, D.C.'s power, authority, corruption, swampiness. But I guess on this issue, to me, I am grasping at straws, trying to make myself care about it. You got Elon Musk. Last week we talked about this. He's kind of gone through the gambit, right? You know, endorsing political candidates. You have the euphoria of the victory, and then Washington, D.C. just absolutely squashes any real opportunity. And I know he says Doge is going to go in, and let's hope that it does. Let's hope that the Doge cuts actually, or the Doge discovery at least, not the cuts, actually leads to people being marched out of some of these buildings in handcuffs, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that. What else did Musk say? He says interest payments already consume 25% of all government revenue. If the massive deficit spending continues, there will only be money for interest payments and nothing else. No Social Security, no medical, no defense, nothing. Yeah, so it is almost $37 trillion according to Wall Street Mav. He writes our annual U.S. budget deficit is going to be over $2 trillion per year going forward. So it's clear, I mean, and people are going to say, I mean, the math, certainly, yeah, this is unsustainable. I agree. It's unsustainable. It's irresponsible. But why hasn't it mattered yet? I guess that's what I'm failing to understand. I get maybe it is the interest payments, right? The interest payments haven't ballooned to where they're ballooning now. So now it's finally going to matter. But I mean, if that actually happens and a financial collapse actually happens, and we were 12 trillion in debt, and it took us all the way to get to 40 or 50 trillion before the wheels kind of fell off. It's just going to have some questions about the elites that were running our society and how much they actually hate the people. There's certainly that to consider. But again, I don't think, like, because I think the whole financial system is rigged in so many instances, and it's been able to stay afloat based on just totally unsound economic fundamentals. None of us could run our households like this, but they are, and they continue, and they believe they will always be able to continue to run it however they want to run it. That there will never actually be the consequences that an average person would experience in their own household because it's a government and it's not a person. That must be what they're thinking. Elon Musk, again, I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This was the initial tweet that kind of set everything off. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it. Well, they're just following instructions, Elon. It's been decided this is what Congress is going to do. It's been decided. Now, I think and then you got Rand Paul, who's having a field day with this. He thinks this is fantastic. Anyway, I digress. And then you got Rand to go. Stephen Miller, though. So you've got, and I saw where Caroline Leavitt said something about this as well, that everybody's trusting the Congressional Budget Office now. I mean, as long as I've been doing this, the Congressional Budget Office has been known to be a political arm of the Democrats. So, and Caroline Leavitt pointed this out. I don't have the clip in front of me, but yesterday I saw it where she said, look, everybody that works for the Congressional Budget Office, for those of you that don't know, they make the estimates about what the financial impact of a bill is going to be. And she says everybody that works for the Congressional Budget Office, or let's just say there have been none of the employees in the Congressional Budget Office that have that have donated to Republican candidates. If there are donations made out of the Congressional Budget Office from personnel, they're only going to the Democrats. So what that means is the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, if a Democrat is in power, is going to lie, and they're going to say that whatever financial spending bill is going to be done is going to be, they're going to underestimate its actual cost of whether, it's to the economy or taxpayers or whatever. And then when a Republican is in power, they understand that deficit spending is actually wrong, and they're going to lie and inflate and overestimate it to make the Republican administration look as bad as possible. That's at least the allegation, and I think it's probably true. Stephen Miller writing that the score Rand Paul is citing is the size of the tax cut. The bill slashes spending, they claim, by almost $2 trillion. So Stephen Miller from the Trump administration says that this is actually going to cut spending by $2 trillion. Also, why doesn't Rand ever fight this hard to deport illegals? So you got Rand Paul, you got Thomas Massie. Here's the real question. Will Thomas Massie or Rand Paul actually vote for some of the Doge cuts that they're trying to codify, which actually are just a snooze fest, by the way? More on that in a minute. Elon Musk calls for the United States to withdraw all funding to the United Nations. And then we have this. Okay, so here's Steve Scalise writing, Congressman Steve Scalise writing, proud to lead this massive rescissions package to codify $9.4 billion of President Trump's spending cuts. We will bring this to the House floor next week. They canceled all votes for Friday, by the way, so they're going home. So he says this is a critical move to lock in real savings for the American people. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. This is a snooze fest. We just went over the amount of debt that we have. It's just so both sides. Just to me, $9.4 billion is nothing. Nothing, especially when you looked at all of that money that was going through, that was being laundered via USAID. It's absolute nonsense. But that's what you're going to see. Okay, we've been called out. We've been called out by the American people. We're not going to implement the Doge cuts. Well, now we are. Now we're going to do it. $9.4 billion. But you got to wonder, is Thomas Massie even going to vote for that? I'm not sure. So it's just crazy. It's all over the place. And to me, again, maybe my take is wrong. But I guess I've been here before, and I know. I remember the Tea Party. I remember how it got commandeered and astroturfed. I remember, the Freedom Caucus and all that other stuff. And I remember how the national debt really mattered on the campaign trails in 2010, and then nobody really cared. And so since it was $12 trillion, now it's 37, and nothing has happened, and really, nothing bad has happened. I mean, you can say inflation has happened and things like that. Yes, obviously. When I say nothing bad has happened, I mean nothing bad has happened to them. Nothing bad has happened to the people that I think know something we just don't know. I mean, that's my only conclusion. This whole thing could be a 20-year exercise to create a financial crisis, to construct the glass case, and when they're ready, they can break open glass and trigger the financial collapse. It certainly would hurt Donald Trump if they decided to do that now. That may be one of the plays here, to blame it all on him, trying to completely reorganize how we fund our government with tariffs. I would like to think that Howard Lutnick and Trump and others who have said we really do want to replace the income tax with tariffs, I'd like to think they'd love that, but that would make Donald Trump one of the greatest presidents of all time. Do you realize if they eliminated the income tax in this country, it would be the greatest transfer of freedom from the federal government, from a centralized structure back to the people since the American Revolution? If the federal government all of a sudden didn't have a right to know how much money you make every year, it would be incredible. So this entire exercise also can be looked at as a complete way to resist actual reform that would be lasting and generational and life-changing and would actually make the people that live in America's lives demonstrably better, noticeably better. Just my 2 cents. Before we go any further, I want to tell you again about redvivehealth.org and these incredible life-saving, I think, life-enhancing for sure, red light panels. I had a great conversation with Dr. Raul Desai from Red Vive Health yesterday. Folks, it's incredible what is actually happening with this technology. I'm blown away by it. When I hear the success stories, we're actually going to be talking to him again next week because this audience is really receiving this message well. We're actually going to be talking about how red light therapy can actually help with hair loss. Did you know it can also help with weight loss? It can also help your sexual health. We'll talk about that in coded terms. Skin rejuvenation, obviously, and improving brain health. Improving brain health, are you serious? So also, like before and after pictures. Like we've got images that I'm going to show you next week about like tendons and ligaments and joints and spine, and before and after photos of people that desperately needed help and desperately needed this technology. So I want you to listen up, though, towards the end of this ad, because there's a lot of you out there who've been putting off buying one of these because of the price point. And understand that. You get a 15% discount when you use the code Paul. You can just go to the link, redvivehealth.org/Paul, and the discount gets built in at checkout. But it's also Father's Day coming up. And so I want you to look at that code right there on the screen, Fathers15. You can combine these codes. So if you use the code Fathers15, Fathers, the number 15, you now can save 30% through the end of the week. This is this is not going to be forever. This is going to be through the end of the week, through this weekend. You can shop now at redvivehealth.org/Paul. Get the 15% off. Get the clinical strength panels in your home. 60-day money-back guarantee. 0% interest financing available, so you can lock in an even lower price if you want to go that route and pay it out. Fathers 15 and Paul will get you 30% off. And I just think you guys should all take advantage of this because this is an incredible technology. Big Pharma doesn't want you to know about. Medical Industrial Complex doesn't want you to know about. redvivehealth.org/Paul. Promo code Fathers15. All right, so now we have this news, and I'm so thankful. Finally, sorry, I had the Twitter settings all wrong this entire time. I'm so thankful that Donald Trump has actually responded here and is trying to, well, I mean, just an update about what's going on in Russia, Ukraine, Zelensky, that sort of thing. So moments before we came on the program, Donald Trump says, I just finished speaking by telephone with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. The call lasted approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes. We discussed the attack on Russia's docked airplanes by Ukraine and also various other attacks that have been taking place by both sides. It was a good conversation, but not a conversation that will lead to immediate peace. President Putin did say, and very strongly, that he will have to respond to the recent attack on the airfields. We also discussed Iran. Now, let's stop right there before we get to that. So Putin's going to respond. What's he going to do? Is he going to use some hypersonic missiles? Is he going to attack Kiev directly? What's he going to do? What exactly is he going to do? I can't imagine he's actually going to attack a NATO country because that would be like Bashar al-Assad gassing his own people, which he did not do. But so there is a strike coming. There is going to be something, I think, massive that Russia is going to do in response. By the way, shortly after this was released, I saw another post that said, now Zelensky wants some peace talks. Now Zelensky's ready for peace. I don't buy that either, but we will see. I think what this says is there's no way that there's going to be peace in Ukraine unless Zelensky is removed from power. I think that's where we're at now, which is going to fly in the face of everything. Ozempic, Mike Pompeo. By the way, don't take Ozempic, kids. Lindsey Graham. It's going to fly in the face of everything that these guys are trying to do. They're trying to undermine. I think it's clear after this statement that these Lindsey Graham, Mike Pompeo over in Ukraine are deep state intel oligarch saboteurs. Of course, we already know that, but they're very much fulfilling their role, and I don't understand how they think they're going to have any consequences back home when they're doing this. So Donald Trump then says, we also discussed Iran. Now, this is so interesting to me because you guys know what my position on this is. If you don't have peace in Ukraine with Russia, I don't see how you're going to have peace in the Middle East with Iran, because the administration wants to normalize relationships with Russia. That's what they've said anyway. And people like Lindsey Graham and Mike Pompeo don't want them to do that. Okay? They don't want that to happen. They want war. So this is interesting because Iran is a Russian proxy. And so I think Mike Pompeo and I think Lindsey Graham especially wants a war in the Middle East. And so they want the Ukraine war to continue so they can have their war in the Middle East. If the Ukraine war ends and relations are normalized with Russia, then Iran is off the table. I think Lindsey Graham knows this. He says Trump says we also discussed Iran and the fact that the time is running out on Iran's decision pertaining to nuclear weapons, which must be made quickly. I stated to President Putin that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and on this, I believe that we were in agreement. President Putin suggested that he will participate in the discussions with Iran and that he could perhaps be helpful in getting this brought to a rapid conclusion. Cue Mark Levin's meltdown later today on Talk Radio. Talk Radio is going to go crazy. Mark Levin's going to go nuts on WABC. He's going to go absolutely crazy based on that statement. Donald Trump trusting that thug Putin. Anyway, I digress. That's a fun impression to do. So Donald Trump thinks Putin can help getting Iran to sign some sort of nuclear deal, and be helpful that this will be brought to a rapid conclusion. Then he says, it is my opinion that Iran has been slow-walking their decision on this very important matter, and we will need a definitive answer in a very short period of time. Here's another question. Does Iran's decision about this nuclear deal proposal, are they also looking to Russia? Are they trying to figure out what's going to go on with Russia and Ukraine as well? I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces here, and a lot of different state actors are involved. And it's very clear that governments, especially in the case of America, are not monolithic, because we've got saboteurs like Pompeo and Graham out there trying to start World War III and sabotaging any opportunity for peace. So now the world awaits Vladimir Putin's next move. What's he going to do? Is he going to strike? Is he going to help with the Iran negotiations? It's absolutely very interesting. Jack Posobiec highlighting this J.D. Vance audio clip, highlighting the complete buffoons that are governing us. So this actually kind of puts a bow on the last segment with Musk and the big, beautiful bill, but it also is a bridge into talking about failed Western foreign policy. Listen.
It's very hard, and I saw this in the United States Senate, to look back on a 30, 40, or 50-year career and say, the very thing that I tried to do, I accomplished the opposite. Right? It takes a special person to be able to actually change and pivot and accept new information. And unfortunately, we just don't have a lot of those people in the leadership class of the country. I mean, the way in which this is most absurd is the people who are most pro-globalization, the people who are most indifferent to whether a given part of the supply chain existed here or China or Russia or somewhere else, those are very often the same people who want us to fight wars all over the world with munitions that are increasingly made by the very people that we offshored our supply chains to. And the fact that, I saw this in the Senate, the fact that you would have people say, we should send an unlimited number of munitions to this conflict, even though we don't make those munitions in the United States of America anymore, the complete disconnect between their views on foreign policy and economic policy made me realize again that we're governed by people who aren't up to the job.
Yeah, we're governed by people who aren't up to the job is absolutely the truth, and they very rarely see their own contradictions and want to actually do anything about it. And then there's some that are just absolute sociopaths, and they know they're contradictory, but they don't care. And they're just in it for themselves, and I would say that's the majority of them. Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, attention, he writes, I do not believe that the recent escalation against Russia's strategic bomber fleet was authorized by or coordinated with President Trump. Rather, it is my view that the deep state is now acting outside of the control of the elected leadership of our nation. I believe that these persons inside, some outside our deep state, are engaged in a deliberate effort to provoke Russia into a major confrontation with the West, including the United States. The time is now to take aggressive action against those who abuse their authority as government employees to manipulate the elected leadership of our nation. He says, I'll have much more to say soon. Intelligence doesn't sleep. Patrick Byrne writing that General Flynn knows exactly what he's talking about here in this statement. He says, if Trump did not know about Zelensky escalating against Russia's strategic bombers, and I'm confident that Michael is correct, our deep state is trying to trigger World War III. That much is clear. What happens to guys like Pompeo, though? What happens to Pompeo and Graham for this action, if we're to believe what's being reported, that Trump is left in the dark and that our government's not monolithic? What we're really saying here is that Donald Trump doesn't have control of the United States of America. That's really what's being said here, is that these people that benefited off of the shadow puppets and the auto-pinned administration are effectively still in control. So the real question would be, what in the world is Tulsi Gabbard or Donald Trump going to do to convince other countries that we actually control our government and what they do? Be reminded that Pompeo, Jack Posobiec says, is the former head of the CIA rejected by Trump. He was rejected from this administration. Pompeo was rejected. The people elected Trump, and then our elected representative says, Pompeo, you're not going to be Secretary of State. You're not going to serve in this administration. We don't want you. And Pompeo says, no, I know better. I'm going to go over to Ukraine, and I'm going to be my own diplomat. Now, I don't know how that's not a Logan Act violation, but the Logan Act is meaningless and has been for a very people throw out the Logan Act, and yet John Kerry's done it, Barack Obama's done it, Pompeo's done it, Lindsey Graham is over there, writing checks, signing his own checks with taxpayer money. And this is the thing, Posobiec's right. They're not even hiding what they're doing. They're deliberately undermining the administration's stated goals as peace. Now, maybe there's some sort of statecraft. Maybe this is, I don't know. Maybe we don't have all the facts. I think it's probably safe to say that we don't have all the facts. But what it looks like right now is ridiculous and embarrassing. Here's Gunther Eagleman. This is Pompeo. Here he is in Ukraine.
Welcome to Odessa. And
don't take Ozempic, kids.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I hope the travel works.
Yeah, so this man thinks he's Secretary of State, and he's not. Marco Rubio. By the way, where is Marco Rubio on this? I don't know if he's made a statement or not. But this is outrageous. I'm channeling my inner Mark Levin, I guess. Lara Logan, when Mike Pompeo was running the CIA, he allowed the Russia hoax to continue. He could have ended it all without costing the taxpayers millions. He could have spoken up for the man who appointed him, and he did not. We know who Mike Pompeo is, and he's not to be trusted. The other day, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt got a question in broken English about whether or not Trump knew about this attack. This is what she said.
More on Ukrainian drone attack on Russia. Was President Trump informed in advance by Ukraine that the attack is coming?
He was not. Carrie.
That's all she said. He was not. Very firm. She didn't go into any more details. This is the same guy. And by the way, this has all been a rehabilitation effort. Ever since Zelensky comes into the Oval Office and shows the world who he truly is, Mr. Sniffles, they've been trying to rehabilitate his image leading up to this attack that's been planned for 18 months. Donald Trump's been president. They didn't tell him about it. They went ahead with it anyway. And now we all wait. And now peace is less likely. Then here's Lindsey Graham. Again, this is the third day in a row that we've talked about Lindsey Graham. He goes on some Ukrainian television, where there's a translator. Listen.
Die Charmoffensive, wie ich sie nennen würde, Putin an den Verhandlungstisch zu bringen.
No, we can't understand that. But allegedly, according to this tweet, he says the war in Ukraine won't end until China pays for helping Russia. Part of what he said is the war's not going to end until China pays for helping Russia. There's all this talk about, China's got to be brought into this. China's got to no longer buy Russian oil because that's what Graham is saying here. Graham, that's part of his sanctions bill that he wants to pass in Congress to try to cripple the Russians even more. In the meantime, the Hungarian government, they have revealed that they will be releasing a documentary, according to the British Patriot, exposing USAID as a scandal. The film will highlight how millions of dollars have been directed towards supporting left-wing political movements in Hungary. Fascinating time that we're in right now. Unbelievable. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to regroup here. And we're going to listen to hear from our good friend Mike Lindell. Promo code is PH. Back here in just a minute, about 60 seconds.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Life can be pretty unpredictable, filled with good days and not so good days. And sometimes, the only difference between the two is your level of preparedness. The Jace case lets you be better prepared for whatever comes your way. It contains antibiotics and other prescription medications so that you aren't caught unprepared. With the Jace case, you are able to get your prescription medication before the unpredictable happens, allowing you to turn those not so good days into great ones. Go to Jace.com now and get your own Jace case.
So Jace.com, the promo code there is, promo code there is Paul. And these are, incredible medical kits. You can pick which ones you want, the anti-parasitic or they've got stuff for kids there. The questionnaire is easy. It's Jace, Jase.com. Use the promo code Paul, save some money, and get these wonderful kits today. It helps keep this program on the air as well and also provides you with a good product. So, Who is the firewall? Who is the firewall keeping information from President Donald Trump? I've been following the Deep State Marauder for quite some time, obviously. Ivan Raiklin, we've had him on the show before. Ivan Raiklin believes that Susie Wiles is responsible for much of this. Responsible for a lack of COVID accountability as well because of her ties to previous lobbying groups or Big Pharma. So apparently there was an article by Weird Magazine, or is it Wired, or anyway, a guy by the name of Jake LaHutte. Jake LaHutte writes a piece about Laura Loomer, which is obviously a hit piece. I agree with Ivan Raiklin on that. Saying that there are Trump advisors who are not happy with her influence. So there's apparently anonymous sources from the White House talked to this reporter, Jake LaHutte, and were integral sources, for his article. So Ivan Raiklin is calling out, who are these people talking to Jake LaHutte? So when they talk about Trump's advisors here, Ivan Raiklin is asking, is that Susie Wiles who talked to the press? Is it Chris LaCivita? Is it Ballard Firm, which is a lobbying firm? They tell Jake LaHutte, so he's speculating here who this is. They tell Jake LaHutte, this reporter, that their mutually beneficial arrangements with the notorious right-wing influencer may be coming to an end. So this is, again, a hit piece against Laura Loomer. She's been doing a lot of vetting process. Some people credit her with being the reason Mike Waltz was booted from the administration, or at least that was maybe the beginning of it. So it's a very interesting piece by Ivan Raiklin here, really focusing. He's been focusing a ton on Susie Wiles, been focusing a ton on her ties, and he even said this, I think, in a follow-up tweet to Lindell TV.
Susie Wiles, it's when you see where her money and her roles previous to the White House Chief of Staff and the campaign were, it almost begs the question, is she the one providing top cover and not allowing for COVID accountability to take place in this administration?
COVID accountability to take place. Well, what else? So I guess my question is, I've been following what Ivan's been saying for a while, and I look here, and, we got last week, Trump is literally being informed by reporters about Putin surviving an assassination. How much of this is Susie Wiles as well, potentially? That's the question that a lot of people have. How much access? Who is off limits? Like, how do you prevent? You got to prevent certain people from getting access to the president, and so your personal loyalties or the previous people that you've lobbied from are going to influence that. That's just human nature. Something to think about. So in other news, we also have Chinese nationals. They've been charged with smuggling biological pathogens that can cause devastating disease to crops. By the way, this portion of the program brought to you by Curable Premium Health. We'll tell you more about their great CBD products here in just a minute. You heard me right. We've got Chinese nationals that were, according to these reports, this is, being called by clandestine biological espionage. NBC News, Chinese couple charged with smuggling a biological pathogen into the U.S. Chinese researcher in Michigan and her boyfriend have been charged with smuggling a biological pathogen that can cause devastating disease in crops into the United States, according to federal charging documents unsealed Tuesday. Yung King Jian, 33, a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Michigan, and her boyfriend, Zun Yong Lu, 34, were charged with multiple counts, including conspiracy to defraud the United States, smuggling goods into the country, and making false statements to investigators, the complaint says. So, if you are looking at the strengths of America and you're a foreign country, one of those strengths is obviously going to be the fact that we've got a lot of farmland and can effectively feed ourselves as well as the rest of the world. So if you were going to try to get us to collapse from within, you would do a lot of things like, destroy the nuclear family, get fathers out of homes, but you would also maybe look into, well, what if they couldn't feed themselves? What if we attack one of their biggest strengths? Speaking of China, the governor of Arizona has vetoed a bill that would stop China from buying land near military bases. Who knows? Maybe they've got drones and semi-trucks as well. How many of those drones, that's the thing, our borders have been wide open. This was an 18-month ordeal with Ukraine smuggling these drones into Russia, deep inside Russia. How many semi-trucks of drones are in the United States right now? Something to think about. Something to think about indeed. Okay, so changing gears a little bit. Well, we have been talking about intel oligarchs and the CIA. This throwback clip of Alex Jones talking to a young Alex Jones talking to a young Joe Rogan, and this is going to make sense. Trust me. Listen to this.
Gets back to people need to start valuing information, valuing being informed, and Joe, that's why it's important that the few intelligent celebrities like yourself that are actually involved and want to talk about this stuff and are concerned. We need to see more of our leaders who aren't just in government but are in other facets of society stepping up and telling folks that this is important because you're leaders. You're a leader. And so it takes leadership. We need more real leadership that won't be bought and paid for by the military-industrial complex that's basically buying up our society.
How about this secret agent exposed in the CIA? Turn to the news right now, man. Look.
There it is.
Secret agent exposed.
Wonder what this is.
20% of all the people that work for the CIA are undercover. 20%.
Yeah, spying on their other
20%. They either have jobs overseas, where they're supposedly doing one thing, but they're
most
actually
of them are in the
doing
media.
Thing.
Most of them are in the media.
How crazy is that?
A lot of these guys you see reading off teleprompters on national news, this is admitted, get CIA paychecks on top of it.
Isn't that supposedly the story with Dan Rather? Wasn't there like a big thing on Dan Rather?
A lot of these guys, yeah. Gets back.
So, again, that clip is from a guy named Dutch 1777 or Tenant Media. So in the Diddy trial, it's the last part that I want to focus on. Like, you got celebrities. You saw Britney Spears on the screen there when they zoomed to the TV. All these people are working for the CIA. You don't know who they are. Newscasters, that sort of thing. All that's true. And sometimes they tell you the truth in plain sight. The Diddy trial's been going on, and in the latest development from the Diddy trial, Diddy's former assistant, alleged victim, and the prosecutor's star witness, a woman with the pseudonym Mia, took the stand for the third day of testimony and mentioned Mike Myers, actor Mike Myers' name in connection with the CIA. Headline: Witness in Diddy's trial reveals Mike Myers' CIA request as list of celebrity mentioned only grows. So, yeah, we're talking about that Mike Myers. The Mike Myers whose most famous film is him literally being a spy for MI6. Austin Powers, the international man of mystery. Isn't it interesting that he, according to what's been said in court, is affiliated with the CIA? How many more actors are? Oh, and by the way, when they were trying to trash Elon Musk, who did Saturday Night Live call to do it? To impersonate badly, by the way. Not very funny at all. Elon Musk, Mike Myers. They got Mike Myers to dress up and pretend to be Elon Musk. Something to think about. But isn't it funny that they were telling you, right? Like, you're going to work for the CIA, and by the way, you're going to do a bunch of comedy movies where you work for an intel agency of a government. Pretty wild, baby. Speaking of intel services, Aaron McIntyre with an amazing thread, highlighting an article that was written by academic agent X. Aaron McIntyre writes, yesterday, real Chris Rufo asked why we should repeal the Civil Rights Act, which, of course, violated the Constitution in the way that a freedom of association basically made that not be a thing. Even though, according to some, racism was becoming less and less of a thing. But anyway, the whole forced integration, all that happened after the Civil Rights Act. Aaron McIntyre says that today, academic agent X dropped a bombshell report about a secretive agency with the job of silencing Americans and covering up anti-white violence, like Austin Metcalf. The organization is called the Community Relations Service. Have you heard about this? The Community Relations Service. It's a lengthy thread, but it's really good. He writes, the Community Relations Service, or CRS, was formed under Title 10 of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. It has a level of confidentiality similar to the FBI. Did you realize this? The Community Relations Service. You can't FOIA the agency. Virtually nothing CRS agents do is entered into public records. The CRA is basically immune to Freedom of Information Act requests. All notes, drafts, drafted by CRS agents are destroyed, and those agents may invoke a confidentiality privilege for both Congress and the courts, which they've done previously. A bizarre level of secrecy for an agency that is theoretically geared toward community relations. The Community Relations Service. The CRS isn't a neutral organization. They're explicitly charged by the government with furthering the political goals of the civil rights movement. These goals have included increasing black representation, transgender youth visibility, and planting mosques in Christian towns. The purpose of the CRS, as described by one of its founders, Bertram Levine, was to prevent white backlash to the Civil Rights Act. The Community Relations Service helped to found groups like the Southern Christian Leadership Conference to harass lily-white towns and organize mass demonstrations. The CRS was involved in the forced integration of Catholic communities in Boston, and when 17-year-old Michael Faith was stabbed in 1974, the Community Relations Service was on the scene immediately, not to help the victim or protect the community, but to prevent white students from fighting back. The CRS repeatedly threatened to pull the FCC license of local news stations unless they affirmative action hired black anchors. They also produced propaganda films with big stars like Bill Cosby. The CRS was involved in guiding and downplaying race riots. In 1965, they worked with black leaders like Franklin Florence, who was a student of Saul Alinsky. The goal was to allow rioting, but control it so that it didn't escalate to the level where white residents would react to it. The CRS coordinated the law enforcement and used carefully placed propaganda to prevent white residents from reacting to the multiple black riots across many American cities between 67 and 72. The CRS also set up Operation Rumor Control, which still operates to this day. Rumor Control manipulates local media sources to control reporting on the damage done during riots and downplay the role of the civil rights leader in instigating them. So remember, when Black Lives Matter and you had local reporters or even MSNBC reporters calling it mostly peaceful protests while buildings were on fire behind them in the background? Okay. The CRS is responsible for managing the entire Trayvon Martin incident, including parading the family before Congress. I bet they're the ones that told the AP to invent the term white Hispanic, which I had never heard before Trayvon Martin case. Carefully managing protests in Sanford, Florida, training activists and astroturfing progressive organizations like Dream Defenders. The CRS, again, the Community Relations Service, was critical in increasing the effectiveness of movements like BLM. They train left-wing activists through a program called Marshall Training, coordinate the distribution of supplies from water to jumbotrons, and coordinate media coverage to ensure good optics. The CRS has a playbook to manage and create spontaneous protests, quote, spontaneous, end quote, across the U.S. in favor of all manner of left-wing causes, including BLM, marches in Ferguson, pride events in small conservative North Carolina towns, and protests against Columbus Day in Colorado. The most despicable aspect of the CRS is its murder cover-up operations. You've seen the pattern. A white victim is killed by a minority assailant. Family members come out and make a gracious or gratuitous and obviously scripted statement downplaying the racial motivation on camera. The spokesman calls for fogginess and peace and condemning anyone who would use the incident as a rallying point. The common script isn't an accident. It's coordinated by the CRS. The spokesman is usually an older male who encourages everyone to focus on the character of the victim, not the horrific nature of the attack or the motivations of the attacker. And so this goes on and on and on. So what I'm saying is this organization that I'm really just learning about, the Community Relations Service, is essentially an intel agency. It's operating, it's doing color revolution tactics. Essentially, this is what the CIA would do in other countries, and yet they're operating right here. That's why Orrin McIntyre at the end of this thread says the Trump administration has expressed interest in dismantling the CRS, and they have the power to do so. I'm calling on Donald Trump and J.D. Vance to take action and end this heinous agency's manipulation of the American people. Let's hope that happens. That would be pretty incredible, wouldn't you think? We could end what is obviously like a CIA front group running color revolutions against the American people. Folks, I want to tell you about curable CBD. If you want to fight inflammation, there's a couple of ways you can do it in this country. One of the ways you can fight inflammation is to, well, obviously you got to make sure you move, get exercise, and that sort of thing. But when you get older, those things hurt. So you can pop your ibuprofen. You can take, if it's really bad pain, I guess you could take hydrocodone, although I wouldn't recommend it. You could, take other NSAIDs like Aleve, Tylenol, that sort of thing. Aspirin, I suppose. Or you could look into the benefits of CBD, because you, in your body, have a cannabinoid system that can receive the molecular structure of cannabis. This is not the type of cannabis, though, that gets you high. This is CBD. It's not psychoactive. It has incredible anti-inflammatory properties. The sleep gummies are great for getting you to sleep. So you can put it on the outside of your body with the muscle cream. You can put it on the inside of your body by taking the gummies or the tinctures. They have bath soaks. They have stuff on there for pets to keep their joints going good. I want you to give it a try. If you've never, ever considered it, this is a viable alternative. And if you decide this is right for you, I want you to go to Curable and use my code Paul20 to save 20%. It's Kuribl, Kuribl.com. Promo code Paul20 saves you 20%. So there's been some, we talked about Pride Month yesterday. I thought this was interesting. Donald Trump is not going to make any kind of declaration about Pride Month.
Does the president have any plans on making a proclamation, or is it just going to be June this year?
Well, there are no plans for a proclamation for the month of June, but I can tell you this president is very proud to be a president for all Americans, regardless of race, religion, or creed.
So, no Pride Month from the White House. What a change. How quick things got out of control from the rainbow in the White House with Obama to Pride Month, and now nothing. It's just the month of June. Let's get excited to celebrate Independence Day in 4 or 5 weeks. What about that? Derek Evans reporting that the FBI is now targeting doctors who mutilate children under the guise of health care, gender-affirming care. Yahoo News reporting this. FBI wants to investigate doctors who provide gender-affirming care to minors. Experts question its legal basis. Now, this is one of the things I definitely voted for, by the way. Listen to how CNN describes it. The Federal Bureau of Investigation began Pride Month by asking Americans to report doctors, hospitals, and clinics who offer gender-affirming surgeries to minors, claiming that those procedures amount to child mutilation. What a great first paragraph. That's true. That's exactly right. In social media posts Monday, the FBI and its chief spokesperson asked for tips on any hospitals or clinics who break the law and mutilate children under the guise of gender-affirming care. But experts say the FBI's new push isn't backed up by federal law and may only be intended to scare medical practitioners away from offering those services. Yeah, whatever. Here's the deal, dude. It's child abuse. Like, I'm all for opening up child abuse statutes and adding all of this underneath it, but you don't really have to. Like, this is child abuse without having to do anything at all to the U.S. code or to state codes. It's like we just need heroic law enforcement officers to enforce the law. It's just be just like back in the day. I was talking about this the other day, back in the day where you had decency laws in small-town Arkansas just completely being ignored, and you had pornographic magazines going into all of these stores, and they were being lied to by the distributors. They were saying, you got to take all of our catalog, you don't get any of it. And yet then they go to the prosecutors. They found this is already against the law. This is obscene material. This is a Class D felony. You can go to jail for this. And finally the prosecutors started to move on this. This is the same thing. It's the same thing with calling, mutilating kids health care. Exact same thing. Folks, that's all the time that I have for this edition of the Millstone Report. Boy, I had a lot more to get to, but it's just a jam-packed news day, and don't have the time for it. Make sure to go to my Substack if you want to support me personally, Paul Talk Show, paultalkshow.substack.com. And if you subscribe to the paid version, you get a free copy of Left Wing Will and the Red Pill. You can subscribe without paying, but if you pay, you get a free copy of my game, Left Wing Will and the Red Pill, the game that laughs at the left's expense. Unless I'm providentially hindered, we're going to be back here tomorrow delivering you the news. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. God bless.
The very foundation of the Christian faith is based